as a woman, you're reminded that if you are assertive, it's seen as aggressive. If you are a boss, you're seen as bossy.
How do you deal with mom guilt?
The thing about mom guilt is that a lot of it is how we are perceived. The worry that came out of it was because people think like, but don't you have a 6-month-old at home? You know, that. Versus me, because I'm relieved. Like, I'm feeling great.
Hello everyone, happy 2025. Welcome to the very first episode of the Mind Over Matter, the Mom podcast. This is what I did there. I am so excited to walk this journey with you. Welcome to this space where we're having raw, real, and honest conversations. On this stage, we'll have CEOs, we'll have entrepreneurs, we'll have leaders, mom who are navigating life, and you know, it's all in the mind, right? I'm thrilled to welcome our first guest of the podcast, Shara Itoka. Yay!
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you. Thank you for coming. And thank you for being our first guest on the podcast. We are happy.
Yes, I'm thrilled to be here.
Okay.
I can't wait for this conversation.
Yay. Okay, so I'm going to let my guest introduce herself, tell us a little bit more about herself, what she does, who she is, all the good stuff.
I am an entrepreneur, and I'm the CEO of the ITOKA group. I've worked in consulting for the past 8 years. I've worked primarily in international development, in the public sector, and also broadly in the nonprofit sector. I've also worked in the private sector, consulting with SMEs, so small and medium-sized enterprises. I've been in Rwanda for 7 years.
Wow.
Which feels like a long time. I can feel the 7 years, but it's been a good 7 years.
Okay.
And I am also a fashion enthusiast. I love textiles, especially textiles from the continent of Africa.
Oh, wow. Amazing. We have a whole powerhouse here, and we are thrilled to have this conversation with you. And could you please tell us a little bit about your journey, your unique journey into motherhood, being an entrepreneur, a whole CEO? Yeah, walk us through your journey. We would like to know you more.
Okay.
Yes.
I would say motherhood impacts every part of my journey.
Okay.
There's a mantra that I really like. It's a quote from Madeleine Albright. She said that women can do it all, but not all at the same time.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, I think that summarizes being a mom
Okay.
and having a professional career, because there's so many different things that you have to juggle, but you have to take it in different kind of like segments and compartmentalize it in a bit of a way. But then you're still dealing with your day-to-day. I remember when I first had my son, I was 3 days before I turned 32. So I was 31, but I was really 32.
Okay.
And I got advice
Let's
from
not
a
do the
friend.
math of her age, please.
Let's do, how old is my son now? Yeah. So a friend of mine told me this. A woman who's older than I was told me, when you're with your son, you only focus on your son.
Yeah.
When you're at work, you only focus on work. And I find that to be really hard, because you want to be very present.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, you get an email, you get pinged somehow, someone calls you. There's so many things that you always have to juggle. So although it's that we can't do all, we sometimes feel like we're doing all, because all is happening at the same time. Right? Like we can't put your child on pause because you have a meeting or school calls. Like these are just part of life. So I would say my motherhood journey, my son is almost 12 years old.
Wow.
So I've been in the game for a while now.
Been in the
Not
game,
that
I
long
love
though.
it.
Not that long compared to
Yes.
some people.
Yeah.
And so I don't feel like I had him like early or late. I just feel like it was the time.
The right time.
You know? But I've learned so much from him. I learned so much from other women. I learned so much just from practice. Yeah. It's a daily thing. And it's something that I appreciate. I just love being a mom.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's a good choice.
Yeah, so we got to talking before we shot this podcast. We had an amazing conversation, very intimate, and I loved it. Thank you for sharing that with me. But feel free to share with our people.
You'll get parts of it, not all of it.
Okay, so first tell us about your son.
Okay.
You said he's 11?
He's 11. He'll be 12 soon in March.
Okay.
He is such a curious kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing about him, I would say, I really enjoy him. You know, like I enjoy spending time with my son. It isn't just like, it isn't a chore.
Okay.
I enjoy him. I'm always kind of laughing at things that he shares. I find him to be really interesting. He's an extrovert. He loves to talk. He talks more than me, which is really hard because I like to talk.
Okay.
But yeah, so he's interested in science and math. I think those are his top topics that he loves at school. But he also loves music. So he plays several instruments. He's really a percussionist at heart. He loves the piano. He loves all types of drums and the xylophone. So yeah, those are the things about my son. Xavier, that's his name. He just loves to, he's social. Like he loves to talk to folks, but then he has this very nerdy side to him, which I think is cool.
Okay.
Nerds are cool.
When I first reached out to you, of course, I'd been following you, your page, how you're with your son. He's a DJ, the hobbies that he likes to do, and I was so intrigued with your parenting style. I would like to know how, maybe, I don't know if it's your childhood experiences, how your roots or whatever. How have they shaped your parenting style today?
Absolutely.
We've just dived right into it. No wasting time.
Let's get into it. So my parenting style has really been shaped by my mom and like how I was raised, basically. It's funny. My mother is the most patient person I've ever met in my life. I did not inherit that from her. But what I did learn is by growing up in schools. My mom's career has been in early childhood development. So I was always constantly learning, even if she wasn't saying like, okay, you must pay attention to this, I was learning by her modeling on how to be a present parent and how to be an understanding parent and understanding that children are different. Every child is different.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
I have two, so I know.
Yeah, right? Different personalities, different interests. So I try to get to know Xavier. My mom always says children are new people. So they don't know themselves. I don't know them either. So I'm learning him as it goes. And I'm learning to be a parent too, because I've never done it before.
Yeah, that part.
The learning and also the relearning or the unlearning of some things that we've done that we don't want to do with the next child or we no longer want to do. So I learned a lot from modeling from my mother. And I have older sisters that have been parents way before me. And so being an auntie is a nice practice.
Yeah.
It's a little different because you get to give them right back.
Aunties.
Aunties play an important role, but a lot of babysitting. But you know, you just learn like on your feet. You're learning as you go. Yeah.
So you let him be the child.
I let him be himself. Of course, there are values in our family that I highlight. I'm definitely leading the way when it comes to those things. But I would say that with his interest, I didn't know he'd be so interested in math. I didn't know he'd be so. Math was like not my subject. I didn't know he'd be so strong in science. Though there are people in our family who are very strong in math and science, it's not me. It was definitely not a genetic thing passed down. So I observe him. I observe what he's interested in, and then I provide resources and I support him. So whatever it is, as long as it's safe, I'm there for it. If he wants to go skydiving, I'm not really there for it. If he tells me he wants to play a new instrument, I'm definitely there for it. Also, my parents are musicians. So I think that's another area where I'm very comfortable with, is that music is a part of our lives. It was a part of my life growing up. And so, yeah, he's exploring, I'm also exploring and going with him on the journey,
We've had this conversation, you're a single mom.
Yes, I am.
Can we explore that, talk about your journey to single motherhood, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I've been a single mom pretty much entire motherhood, like period, right? So I got divorced when my son was a year and a half. And so, but I've been with X, like really it's been me and X. But I think something that people forget is that there's nothing that I'm doing in a silo. You know, there's community that's always around us. I really appreciate the role of my family. So for the first 5 years of Xavier's life, I was surrounded by my family. So being there, so I wasn't in Rwanda, I wasn't even like in Liberia initially. And so Xavier was just growing up around like his cousins, around his aunties, around my very good friends. So his godparents, they've all played important roles in his life. So I don't do things completely on my own.
So would you say that community and support and help is what helped you to even venture in like passions and dreams and the leadership that you do, the company that you build? Would you say being a mom, to be able to be a career person, this community played a very vital role?
Absolutely,
Okay.
especially those first 5 years, because my work has required a lot of travel, and after having Xavier, I didn't really want to travel as much, but I did. But I definitely traveled, and I did with their support, right? So for the first 13 months, I was actually at home. I was a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
I could afford it, I could kind of like be with him for that first 13 months, but then I went back.
That's a whole year.
Yeah, which I think there was a lot of bonding during that time. But yeah, I went back to work, and
Is that a decision that you made initially, or it just happened?
I think it just happened.
It wasn't
Like,
intentional.
well, I would say maybe 6 months.
Okay.
Like I really wanted to be at home, but I didn't expect it to be 13 months.
Okay.
But I'm glad that I was able to do that. But then I was ready to go back to work. I think it was because I was transitioning between jobs. And since I was transitioning, I needed to find something that would work for me because I was mostly like in the field. Like I was constantly moving around a lot for work. So I was required in development. And so when Xavier was born, and when he was 13 months and I went back to work, I would travel, but he could stay with my family. So that was great.
What are the sacrifices that you had to endure, like you had to do for your son?
With the travel that came with work, I would make adjustments. So I wouldn't say it was like a sacrifice because I was still able to work in the sector that I was working in. And say I needed to go to Haiti for work, I would go, but I'd go for a week. So I kind of like limited my amount of time, or if I needed to go for 2 weeks for different kind of field visits, I would go, but then I would come back for a couple days and then I would leave again. So I would always kind of consider Xavier in everything that I was doing, but it was like a nice compromise for me. So I could spend a lot of time like in Guatemala or in Haiti. At that time, those were the places that I spent a lot of my time, or New York or wherever I would go, but I would make sure that I wouldn't go for a month. Or, I wouldn't take really long leave from him.
I feel like your story embodies what this podcast is all about. Like your mindset, your mind shift. I like how you're sharing your story. Some of us be like, oh my God, it's over. But you say it so much because you're like, yeah, I had to make this sacrifice, but it's not really sacrifice. I enjoy doing this. Like I had to lean into support more. Like women, mostly like mothers now, when your child comes into your life, of course, everything's going to shift, right? But it's how you handle it. It's how you're going to go about it. Like, okay, I still have to do my work, but can I do it remotely?
Right.
I still have to build this passion project or dream or whatever. I have to put my career, but can I do it around my child and make it work? Lean into the support. I love it so much.
You have to be.
Yeah, because I feel like this is what is this podcast about.
Right.
Yeah, it's about changing your mindset. Like being a mom doesn't mean like your life has ended.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like you have to be creative. And even though some of us are like, well, I'm not a creative sector, I'm not a creative person, moms are creative. Because we find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
You have to be flexible. You have to pivot sometimes. And it's a mindset shift, like you said, because you're not just thinking for yourself. You have to think about the well-being of your child or your children.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I don't see it as a bad thing. I see it as something that it's an opportunity because you're contributing to a life. And I read something somewhere recently that said like, a woman was saying her greatest achievement is her child. Like it was something like your greatest achievement may be the person you raise. I think that's what she said.
Yeah.
And I think about that sometimes. Like I get to pour into Xavier's life instead of, I get to pour, it's not like, it's how you look at it. It's your outlook. And my perspective is, it's a blessing. It's an opportunity. Many people want to be moms and they don't have the opportunity. So I don't take that for granted.
Right. I love that. So talking of not taking that for granted, what do you do for self-care? Like,
oh my goodness,
girl, what do you do to pour into yourself? You're giving and giving and giving.
Yeah. I think the thing is, and this doesn't come automatically as a mom, but I think if you're a mom and you're a giver and you're an empath, you need boundaries. You really have to take care of yourself. Because I'm the type of person, my work is about solving problems. It's about helping, is figuring things out. And that's for other people. And then you have like young people, like I have young people in my life that I try to help them and advise them. And then you mentor. And then you have friends that have perspectives. And then, you know, if you're the type of person who doesn't like to ask for help, which I used to be.
Yeah?
Yeah, I used to be. In my 20s, super, super ambitious.
Yeah.
Used to kind of doing things on my own. Had good mentors, but really like wanted to do it on my own. When you need help, you find yourself kind of either like too proud to ask for help, or you find yourself stuck. So I think it's really important to set those boundaries that this is my rest day. This is when I'm resting.
Okay,
I don't
do you
have
have one of
anything.
those?
Okay, so I don't have like, I'm working on it.
Okay.
I don't have like a permanent day because, and this comes with the parenting piece. I can't be like, I'm not taking any calls from anyone. I turn off my phone.
Yeah.
Because if it's a weekday, school could call. You know what I mean? Like if my son's not with me, my phone has to be on.
Yeah.
But if we're together, let's say Sunday, you know, you go to church, you come home. If Xavier is in the house with me, I could really turn my phone off and not respond to anyone, not take any calls, not get on Instagram. That one is tricky. You know, not doom scrolling, you know, not getting lost in
I like
those
reading
things.
this thing online where like that moms would take would stay up late for alone time and then regret it in the morning.
Absolutely. Well, that's and it reminds me of something else I saw too of a mother. Her baby's sleeping and she didn't know what to do. Should she rest? Should she eat? Should she clean? Should she? And so she was in the shower, drinking coffee, eating a banana, and taking the shower all at once because she didn't, it was so confusing because this time is so precious. But then what do you do with it? And I can relate to that because and then sometimes you end up kind of just like scrolling or doing something mindless, and nothing is wrong with that. But what I love to do on rest days is read. It's like the medium that I prefer, even though, you know, I spend a lot of time on like the visual space, like I like to watch movies or I like to do this, but not as much as reading or writing. Yeah, so that's something I like to do. It keeps me in touch with myself, and then I can create something. It's not too late to create. That's what I'm telling myself, 2025, it's not too late to create.
So how do you navigate mom guilt? Like I know being a CEO, you have this company to run, you want to spend time with your child, you want to have a self-care day.
Right.
Oh my God, it's a lot, right?
It's a lot.
But then how do you deal with mom guilt?
Yeah. You know, mom guilt was heavy when he was younger. I think now that he's more independent, we're at a better kind of phase or stage.
So maybe take us back to when he was little.
Yeah, when he was super little.
Yeah.
You know, I think the thing about mom guilt is that a lot of it is how we are perceived and a little
by
bit
the society.
Yeah.
Than what
how they see us and less about taking that time for ourselves. Yeah, I think for me, whenever I could carve out the time, I would go out with my friends. And I think the worry that came out of it was because people think like, but don't you have a 6-month-old at home? You know, that versus me, because I'm relieved. Like I'm feeling great when I'm out.
Or you've done the work before because okay, this is a little bit of what I used to do to help me ease through the mom guilt. Yeah. Like I I don't know if it's a good thing. I'm just sharing.
You prepare.
My story. I overcompensate.
Yeah.
For example, if it's like something social, not like we work, like social life. Like I'm going out with my friends. I'm going to maybe date night, whatever. First of all, I want to relieve the nanny a little bit. So I would do the heavy lifting. I'll make sure I've made the dinners. Yeah. I have done the bath time.
Absolutely.
Like I've done literally so that she's just there to like watch. So where would I live? I'm like, there's nothing you're gonna tell me. I've done everything I can. It's time to like, you know, just have a good time. And,
I can relate to that. Yeah, you do all the prep work so that when you leave, you're just out. Or like,
but then the child doesn't know. The people who are telling you that don't know what the kind
they
of
don't
work.
know about the prep work.
Yeah, you had to do before that. Yeah, so I hear you.
Yeah, it's a big part of it is just not paying attention to them and taking care of yourself. Because if you burn out, or if you have a breakdown, they're not there. Yeah. So, you know, they're not going to be there to help you. So it doesn't really matter. Yeah. Okay. Keeping that perspective that they are not actually in your life, their perspective doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So we've heard that their perspective doesn't matter. Because really, she's right. Mom guilt really comes from the outside voices. more than it can. But if,
It
sometimes
could. Some people.
it's your voice.
Yeah.
But I feel like when you after you've dealt with your own demons,
Right.
your own voice, because for me before it was in my head. I'm like, oh my god, I've left my key. Da, 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 da. So by the time the other person tells me something or comments something about it, I'm like I'm double triggered because I'm like, wait, I thought I did the work, but now. Also, it's easier as the years go by. Now, my first is also a little bit independent because he's 4 now, almost 4. So he can sit and eat. He can tell you when he's hungry.
That's the big thing.
Yeah, all
when
those
they can
things.
Speak.
There you go.
Yeah.
So before I leave, I'm like, okay, what do you need? Da, da, da. I spend a little bit of time with them. So when I leave, I'm like, I need to go and pour more into myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love
as long
that.
as they're safe. That's my big thing.
Yes.
With a safe person, as long as they're safe, then you can breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
Easier said than done.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What are one of the comments you've received as a mom that kind of come off condescending?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of
but
condescension.
like that, it's a compliment. It really doesn't feel like one. Please share one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So oftentimes I get like, oh wow, you're the mom and you're the dad.
Oh.
People like, especially around like Mother's Day, Father's Day, I'll get like a Father's Day compliment, and I'm not offended by it. Like I understand their intention is that I do everything. Like I am the primary parent, and I have a lot of responsibilities, which is true. But I'm not the father. I am not the father. No, I'm not the father. Sounds like the result of a DNA test.
Yeah.
But no, I'm the mother, and I'm a mother who does a lot of things.
Yes.
But I'm not trying to
play the dad role
because it's just not the same. But I do things that you would say that a dad does.
Sorry to cut you short. I'm like, wow, like.
Yeah.
Wow, let's first take that in. Like, when single moms are like, oh my God, you're doing the dad's role and you're doing the mom's role and the dad's role.
Yeah.
But
I'm doing the mom's role like comprehensively. Like just think of me being holistically the parent versus being the dad. So like, for example, I don't know if single dads get this a lot. I don't know. So I've never really talked to a single dad about this piece, but I don't know if people go to a single dad like, oh, you're the mother, but you might find a single dad braiding his daughter's hair, but that doesn't mean he's a mom. That means he's a dad who braids his daughter's hair. See? So I'm a single mother, which means I taught my son how to ride his bike. And say that's something that people think that a dad would do.
That you do.
Or I'm, with him on everything. Like if he's playing his instruments, if he has a band performance, I'm right there. I'm with him. I encourage him. But I'm doing that as a mother. And so I don't think, like, I feel like these roles are very much like controlled by society, I think, and like larger systems of patriarchy, which we will not get into today. Okay. But I will say that why should we be limited? Like you do what you need to do. There's what society thinks, and then there's the reality and day to day.
Does that point of view come from what your child, from your child's perspective? Like, for example, a child needs both parents, right? So no matter how much you're playing the role of like you're providing, you're protecting, you're nurturing, all the things, but they still need their dad. Is that where you're coming from? Or
okay, so where I'm coming from is that lots of things happen in life.
Okay.
Sometimes you have both parents in the home and it's an abusive environment. Sometimes you have a single parent and it's a very healthy environment. It isn't automatically healthy because they're both parents in the home present at all times. Okay. It isn't automatically damaging because there's only one parent in the home present all the time. That's where I come from. Like that's really the foundation for me. And so how we arrive at being single parents, it's so many circumstances. Someone could pass away. Someone could have a mental health issue, crisis. Someone could not be safe. There could be domestic violence. There's so many different reasons. And whatever the reason is, that parent, that's a single parent, is doing the best that they can. Like two-parent households are supposed to do the best that they can. And that's really the most important thing to me, is that my son is safe, that he's in a home where he has a loving parent that is prioritizing him, considering him, providing resources for him, giving him the space to grow. Now, that can also happen with a single parent and a very active other parent that's like outside of the home too. It just depends on the circumstance. But I don't like pay attention to those things. One thing that's really important to me with these kinds of comments, not even that one, but even worse comments that single mothers get about, oh, you're a single mother, oh, how horrible, or I feel bad for you. I do not focus on, I don't use a deficit framework at all. I don't think about what I'm lacking or what someone thinks I'm lacking or what's perceived as lack. I'm not in a space of lack. I see myself in a space of privilege. I get to parent, I provide, and my son is doing really well. Full stop. It's more about that and less about like, oh, but like he doesn't have all of these, all these things around. He does have a dad. That's the whole point. He has a dad, and I'm not his dad. And he's a living person, and he knows his father. So that's important. But yet, on the day-to-day basis, I play the role as the primary caregiver, and that's what's most important to me. But I don't sit down. I don't feel bad for myself. I have nothing to feel bad about. I'm living a good life and a life with a lot of privilege, and I acknowledge that instead of looking at it as like, oh, it could be different. It could be different, and in lots of ways, it is changing. But I don't look at myself in a
mindset,
in any negative way.
Mind over matter.
Well, but that's what it is. It's a mindset thing, and I think it's important, like you said, about what the child thinks or what you think. It's important that I have this mindset for my son as well, because Xavier is Xavier, and what he needs to know, like all of these societal expectations, these complexities, it's not like it's age appropriate. It's not age appropriate at this time to get into all of those things. What he really needs is to know that his mother loves him, and his mother would do anything for him, and that's what, like, that's the foundation of his self-worth and his self-esteem. He knows that his father loves him, but he knows that his mother is present and doing all the things that she's doing. And so I want Xavier to be in a safe space in his self-worth and in his understanding. And if I had a deficit framework, like, oh, Xavier, you don't have this, or Xavier, you see you don't have that, he wouldn't grow in a healthy manner. He'll just think like, I'm not good enough, And I want him to know that he's good enough. And he's more than good enough. I'm getting emotional because, but it's a principle that I think it's for all of us. I think it's really important. We need to understand that intrinsically we are good, and intrinsically we are loved. And if Xavier knows that, he can change the world. And there are lots of kids of single parents that change the world. I could list so many, and you know them. So I'm just saying that that's how our family sees our family.
Okay, wow. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem. But it's important because I don't think we get the space to share this as single parents. I think there's a lot of shame that comes around it, which I reject. I've never felt ashamed.
In the name of Jesus.
No, I reject it. I return it to sender, not here. But because we can't live in that space.
Okay.
Because then I wouldn't be able to do all the things that I do if I was working from a place of shame.
You wouldn't be able to thrive.
No, and my son wouldn't be able to thrive because he'll see his mom always kind of like looking down on herself or pulling herself down. He needs to see a confident mother. He needs to see a confident parent above all.
Okay, now that I've tackled the motherhood side, let's dive a little bit into the career side. Now, you are here doing all this for your son. How do you carry yourself in the workspace?
I carry myself with confidence. Like, I understand I'm a leader. I've always known that since I was his age. And I see my son, I feel we're all leaders, right? Like we should embrace that. But I encourage him to take leadership responsibilities and to grow his skills. But I see myself as a leader. So I have to position myself in that way as I do my work. I think when you're a consultant and you work for yourself or you have your own like enterprise and you're navigating all of these different projects and all of these different bosses that are attached to all of these different projects, you have to manage your time well and you have to be disciplined. Discipline is not my favorite thing. I'm definitely more of a in the flow kind of person. Like I will move here, there. I come across as type A, but I'm a bit type B in my personality. But I have to be disciplined in order to perform well. I understand what's what's
At stake?
at stake.
Yeah.
But I've always been this way. Even
Okay.
before I became a parent, I was always like very ambitious, very driven. But yeah, I understand that I'm a leader. I understand that I have my own personal goals and my career goals. So there's personal development goals, there's career goals, there's parenting goals.
Yes.
Like there are things I would like to do with my son that together we could do, ways I want to see him grow. But those different categories, I have to invest in all of them, and that's time.
Okay.
It's primarily time, and time is money, but it's an
Yeah.
investment. So I see it that way.
Okay.
Yeah. So career-wise, this year, I think you and I were chatting about this off camera.
Yeah.
2025 for me is about doing the things and launching some things that I have not done, but I've had like whispers of in my mind, things that I've been passionate about, but I
Yes.
just haven't pursued because I'm so busy kind of delivering on
Yes.
other people's work.
Okay.
And so now it's time to deliver on my work.
Oh wow, we can't
Yeah.
wait to see that work. I recently dropped a reel on us. I'm like, yes,
Fun.
queen.
That was a fun reel. Yeah, but it's like
Yes.
trying new things,
Yeah.
or because I see myself as a creative person as
Yeah.
well, like within that space. So yeah, gonna
Okay.
do more of it.
Yes, love it, love it. Now, how's your dating life?
I knew
Or
you were
are we
gonna go
not
here.
dating?
Well, actually, so if I could sum up dating,
Okay.
In one word, I would say trash. I'm not saying the people are trash, no. No, but the experience has
Okay.
been disappointing.
Would you say, okay, wait, let me rephrase that.
Underwhelming.
Okay, so now you grew up in?
So I grew up a few places.
Okay.
So I was born in Liberia, left when I was 5.
Okay.
Then I grew up in the States during the war. Liberia had a civil war for 14 years. Then I was in Europe for 4 years. I was in France and the UK. Then I was back in Liberia for 6+ more years. Then I've been in Rwanda for 7 years. But a big chunk has been in the US.
Okay.
And in like outside of the continent.
Yeah.
Though I'm pushing like a third of my life has definitely been on the continent.
Okay, so I asked
Yes.
that because I want to know. Now you moved to
dating context.
Yeah,
Right,
dating
right.
context, right?
Yeah.
So you moved to Rwanda.
Right. So I'm giving you a perspective of dating in Rwanda.
Okay.
Dating
Let's go.
other places. I mean, dating other places. I didn't date so much after I had Xavier
Okay.
because I was just busy. You know, like I told you, I was traveling for work. I was, trying to settle into being a mom, get into that groove, and just parenting, right?
Okay.
So I basically didn't really date. But since moving to Rwanda, I would say Rwanda's a small place. So
Everyone knows everyone.
everybody knows everyone, and even though I'm not Rwandese, everybody knows everyone, right? Like
Yeah.
you can easily kind of get to know folks.
Yeah.
So when I say trash, I mean like the experience overall, it's a joke, has been underwhelming. It's been a
Okay.
bit disappointing, I think, because the variety of personalities are a bit limiting.
Let's do
but-
better. Let's do better.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
think there's a bit of that. I also don't know if it's a great place for a single mom in her 40s as well. Because, like I said, you need a variety of people with different experiences.
Yeah.
You need more people who are divorced, single.
Single.
So I mean that's like check one is
Yeah.
that you're available, and
Yeah.
a lot of people just aren't available. So then you're
Yeah.
like, okay, that category goes there, and then you're left with the people that are single, and that's where the underwhelm comes from.
Okay, okay.
But it could evolve. It could
Okay.
evolve. You can import someone.
Okay, let's see. How do you feel about that in relation to your son? Like, do you? Okay, I know like, there's intentionality involved.
Yeah.
When you go into like dating.
Yeah.
Mostly when you have kids.
Yeah.
Like, how does this affect my child emotionally?
Right.
Yeah. So.
And my son is so funny. My son has like a clear perspective on who he thinks that I should marry. Yeah. So
Oh, yeah?
if you're out there, you should hear this.
Okay.
No, my son is very. Well, first of all, Xavier's number one is that he has to love Xavier, which I think is great, and that's really important to me.
Yeah.
He needs to connect with Xavier. I would not partner with anyone who like doesn't like kids or doesn't like my son in particular or doesn't understand my son, because that's a better way of
sorry,
putting it.
I know I'm asking this question okay, I know we would just maybe have a conversation, casually, but
Yeah.
the reason why I would ask the question on the podcast is, again, mindset, and then to know that there's no limit, right? Just
Why
because
not?
maybe you have a child
No, people
without
with
a
children date all the time.
Yeah, so that's where I'm coming from. I'm
Yeah.
not being in all her business.
Yeah, no.
Yes.
I mean, I think, listen,
Okay.
dating is possible. I think one of the stereotypes about dating a single parent is that they don't have the time. I've seen like jokes online about like, okay, if you date a single mother, it's between 3 and 6 p.m. or it's between 11 and 4 a.m.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because she's so busy.
She's so
juggling so much.
busy.
So I think there's truth to that, of course, because it's like, okay, there's babysitters, nannies, there's waiting until my son is, sleeping, or you know what I mean? Like, when do you find time to connect? So I think you just have to be creative. I think you have to be open-minded, that it doesn't have to look just one way. You can have coffee during the day. You could have dinner at night. I don't think being a single parent has ever stopped me from dating. I think what is limiting is the fact that the dating pool is small. That's all I will say.
Okay.
And I'm not saying the dating pool is bad, and that contributed to the trash experience. I'm just saying it's small. And when you have a small pool, there aren't as many people to choose from with exciting experiences.
Do you want to give us like a vague example of
A vague example?
of your trash date? Like,
Oh, so okay. So this is
so
this is an
nosy.
example of like a trash dating experience
Okay.
here. I would say it's that people always like perceive you, which has been something we talked about in this conversation. So they see you, they see that you're independent, they see that you have your own car, they see like you're successful, they see, I mean, these things to me they're superficial, like they're just on the surface. But people are looking at that. They see that you maybe dress a certain way or you speak a certain way. And so I definitely get approached by people who want to like benefit from that, from your independence, and versus contributing to that. So they're not thinking about adding value, they're thinking about taking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So they're
okay.
like, oh, you have this, you have that. Can you give me some?
Lack of a better
just
way to
be,
put it,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. You told me to be vague.
Yes.
So I'm not going to say a name.
Yeah, of course
But I'm
not.
going to say, like, they oftentimes, they want to be associated with you because of how you look on the
Yeah.
surface. And I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. Like, we're all kind of presenting ourselves.
We're all looking for love, guys. We're
Hi.
looking for connection.
But you shouldn't just look for a connection.
Okay.
It needs to be a mutually beneficial situation. And most importantly, it does not need to be transactional. And I feel like there's a lot of that when people see like you're successful, and some of these men have success as well. So I'm not don't imagine someone who doesn't work or no, this could be someone who is also like on a career journey, but if they see that you are successful in their eyes, they're like, okay, how can I benefit from her success? And that's not the kind of person I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone who supersedes, matches or supersedes my goals.
Okay, so would you say, okay, now away from the motherhood part, the CEO part, right? Like you're successful, you have this going for you, you have your own money, right? So would you say that intimidates some people?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And even before I ever got married and when I was like ambitious in growing my career, I would hear this whole intimidation thing. I'll never forget one of my uncles, when I was in graduate school, he told me, he was like, if you get a PhD, you will not marry an African man. Like he was very like hardcore. And I was like on the path to getting one. Like I got into school and I was gonna go, and then I changed my mind, not because of that, but I changed my mind because I loved the work that I was doing at the time. But, he was saying, he's like, you'd be so intimidating. Now, African women with PhDs marry all the time, right? So it's not that. It's just people do get intimidated if they feel like they don't have the same to offer, or they feel like someone might outshine them, or they feel like you're harder to control. That comes up a lot. I think a lot of it is rooted in control. And if you're with a partner that wants to control you, then we're having problems already, because I feel like love is freedom, and that doesn't mean you don't respect each other, you're not loyal, you're not responsible. It just means that I'm not forced to do this because then it's not love. Then it's
Okay.
just about
Okay, so
domination.
okay, so, no, that kind of puts me. Okay, we're over talking about this, but stop me, please. Please stop me.
Stop, please, stop,
Okay.
stop. No. Okay, no, ask me.
Yeah, so I feel like now, if there's the pool that is intimidated,
Yeah,
then there's the
some.
pool that is like, I'm a go, but I'm with a different agenda.
Right, there's
So
that part of the pool.
what we're gonna do
What
about
we
this?
want is the pool that has the sweet spot is the person who doesn't see relationships as transactional, is a mature person who has their own money, and knows how to contribute to a family. That sees relationships as a partnership. That's the sweet spot. You want that kind of person. And I personally would like somebody who's a strong leader.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you're a leader in the home and you're used to being one, and you have a partner who's not a leader or doesn't have experience in leadership, I think it gets challenging.
From being a younger self, ambitious,
Yeah.
the challenges you went through as a
Right.
young woman, navigating her career journey,
Yeah.
right? And then to being a mom, and then being a
Yeah,
single
and never expecting that.
yeah, never expecting that.
Yeah.
And like, what are the challenges?
My greatest challenge is being the decision maker for everything. So if things fail, it's Shara. If things succeed, it's Shara and God.
Yeah.
But if they fail, it's Shara, right? So
yeah.
it's a burden. It can
Yeah.
feel that way. So I would say that's the biggest challenge. The other one is the emotional investment that you make when you raise a child by yourself. That if he's sad, if he's sick, who does he go to? It's mama. Anything? It's mama. Like there's no one to be like, okay, well, I'm on this meeting, which
Yeah.
oftentimes I am. It's like, I'm giving this presentation right now. Like, Xavier, can you come back in? No, sometimes he needs you at that time.
that
There's no one to
time.
delegate to.
How do you do that though?
So let me be honest. I work a lot at night.
Yeah.
Like I'm the person that will work through the night. I will work through 6 a.m. the next morning in order to get stuff done, in order to prioritize Xavier, you know?
ITOKA group.
Yes.
The challenge is you as a woman,
Yeah. Oh,
as
gosh.
a CEO, right?
Yeah.
That you had to go through to be where you are now.
Yeah.
Can we share a little bit about that?
I think that sometimes you're like, oh, it's 2025. You know, I know Liberia had a first female president in Africa. We've had female presidents around the world. We've had female leaders. In Rwanda, 50% of the ministers are women. Like, you know, there's so many policies that are pushing us forward. Not enough, but there are definitely policies that have come up that push women. But yet there's life. and as I was saying before, day-to-day life, and navigating that. And as a woman, you're reminded that if you are assertive, it's seen as aggressive. If you are a boss, which I am, I'm the boss,
Yeah.
you're seen as bossy.
Yes.
You know, so there's oftentimes a negative connotation that women deal with that men don't. Like they'll be like, oh, he's a go-getter. Like that guy's really sharp. But women, they're like, oh, she's too much. And so
Yeah.
even here, even in the work that I've engaged in here, even in the boards that I'm on, you will find that for some men, it rubs them the wrong way to have a woman as a leader above them. I think some men feel comfortable if you're below them, oh, for sure. Maybe next to them, maybe, but definitely not above
Yeah.
them. And so I think that's something that someone has to work out within themselves.
Yeah.
It's not my business. I mean, it can impact my business though.
Yeah.
So
I'm
I'm,
building connection.
Yeah, I
Mostly
think-
in a male like.
you know, but let me tell you why I'm so confident now is because I got so much practice back in Liberia. So I've had so many strong male bosses that there have been times I was the highest ranking woman in a ministry and all these men were surrounding me. I used to go on trips in the counties being the only woman. And this is in my 20s. So from that time, I got a strong backbone. I also learned that I learned to engage with men. But I've faced a lot of different things. I've definitely been told by men, even when I was younger, like, oh, be quiet, or because it was not just my gender,
no.
it's also my age. Like I was
Yeah.
also quite young. So it was like, well, my daughter's your age, or like I've been
can't
dismissed
tell me
in that way.
nothing.
Right. So now 20 years later, you know, my backbone is quite strong. Like I'm not easily intimidated.
It takes practice.
Yeah, it definitely took practice. So one thing I would say to young women who are coming up, or if they're male-dominated fields, or they're starting something, they're at the helm, they're leading. I would say you have to really build up your self-confidence and your knowledge of your abilities. So people will test you all the time on your expertise because they see you as a woman, but they're like, you can't be as smart as I am, or you can't know more than I know. But you have to be so sure of yourself that what you bring to the table is what you bring to the table. And no one can take that from you. So I think that's one really major piece.
Yes.
I think the other piece is
You are who you think you are.
Absolutely, right? You are. And you have to also remember to not take it all home with you and let it live in your head.
Okay.
Because
that can be really demoralizing.
Right, and especially I think like some people think, oh, women are so sensitive. And I don't think being sensitive is bad. I think women lean more to being deeply feeling because society kind of gives us that space. There are some men that are really deeply feeling, but maybe they don't want to express it because society says you shouldn't really be that way. But nothing's wrong with being deeply feeling. But don't hold on to that offense. There's so much stuff I've had to let go. In my interactions with men, or in my interactions with men in work, right? That's what we're talking about. Men at work, is that I have to let some things go. Like if someone says something that is off-putting, or something demeaning because I'm a woman, I will find my way to check you, and then I will move on. Yeah. So I think being confident and also knowing when to let things go and not live with that offense so that it could bring you down.
Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That was a powerful message and powerful way to end the podcast.
All right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
End this episode. But before we go, let's do something fun.
All right.
Right?
Yes.
So, this or that, right? Heels or flats?
Heels.
Dress or pants?
Dress.
Blazer or sweater?
Blazer. I know you like blazers. My blazer queen.
Yes. And on that note, thank you so much for watching and listening to this episode. Thank you so much to our guests who have shared deeply, who has poured our heart out, to all of us who are listening. And yeah, don't forget to like this episode, subscribe, share, and yeah, let's have an amazing time. Let's have more conversations like this, and leave in the comment what is your takeaway from this conversation. And yeah, thank you for being with us, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Say bye.
Bye. See you.